Hi and welcome. I'm Michelle Vandepass with Purpose and Profit, and we're going to do a little bit of a reverse today. So Karen Parker, you might know her as Karen Curry Parker, human design queen, and Grace Point. Wait till you hear about Grace Point. We're going to turn the tables, and she's going to interview me today. But I think because we're both interviewers, we'll end up just having a conversation. So welcome to the show, Karen, and you're on.
Oh, well, thank you. I would say welcome to the show, Michelle, and welcome to the hot seat. So, I think that, I think before we even get started, let's talk a little bit about your background, because I think there are a lot of people that are going to be joining in who don't know so much about you. And I always like to call you the platform queen, but I don't think that's even a big enough description of you, because you've got this incredible mission that you're on about helping people connect with their purpose and their profit. You've had an enormous amount of experience going out and sharing that message with the world, including speaking on TEDx stage, including writing some of your own material. You are what I call the author whisperer. You have taken several, how many hundreds, thousands, millions?
About a year ago, it was about 500 authors.
So taking them to the bestseller seat. So that's just, I think, a small description of some of the things you've done. You've also owned several million-dollar holistic health businesses. You've got patents on all kinds of interesting machines. So you are the classic entrepreneur, the woman who evolves every few years, as I would say most entrepreneurs do. And I think, that's another conversation for us to have at some point is, we have this idea that we're going to find this one purpose. You're going to be stuck from cradle to grave in this one purpose, and it's going to look this one way. And, I don't find anybody who follows that path, particularly entrepreneurs, So
I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
I think there's a purpose that sort of goes through the thread of our lives, but how we manifest that out into the world, how we express that changes. Mm-hmm. But if we look back over our lives, there's probably an overriding theme that pulls together the same purpose. I mean, we could say the only purpose in the world is to love, right? But if we go above that a little bit on the sort of and ground that, what does that mean for each one of us? That looks different for each one of us. And I think your purpose, if we were to go back and look, probably has a lot of threads that go through teaching, caring for others, right? So I sort of jumped right in there, but you were a nurse, but you also have always probably taught throughout your life. So I imagine there's threads.
There's a consistent theme, but I think, and I mean, I find this to be true, I think, of a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've worked with. And I suspect, knowing some of the people who have worked with you, that it's the same sort of a thing, that the people who, I would say, you work with conscious entrepreneurs, people who really have a deep, soul-based, bone-deep drive to share a message with the world. And most importantly, I think, really seek to, I was a midwife for a couple of years, so I really like the midwife metaphor. It's like you work with these midwives of this new world. And I think what part of the changeability of people is not so much that they're flaky or they're wishy-washy or they can't find that one thing. It's that I think they operate with sort of this intuitive awareness of what the world really needs next as the world itself continues to evolve and grow. And they are kind of taking their orders, and putting them into action. And, the piece that's so beautiful about what you do is you help them. And you've done this for me, myself. You get the message, you get the purpose, and you kind of put the legs on it and ground it in the 3D sort of, here's how you do your marketing. Here's how we get you out, and get your book sold. Here's how we craft your message. Here's how we create certification and training programs for you. I mean, that's the piece that I think a lot of messengers, if we call them that, they really need that support and that love and that encouragement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's so the piece about that I think that's so interesting is so many people have a passion for what they do, and maybe got to where they are today through a creative process. And that could be either, a download from above somewhere, or internal journaling or writing, or as many of us, especially the longer we live, we have personal crises that sort of have us wake up and say, okay, what am I really doing on this planet? What is it I'm here to do? And then we have this vision of how our lives could be, or how we're supposed to help, or how we're supposed to serve, or how we're supposed to love in the world, right? But then we don't know exactly how to make that happen, or we follow some other guru that tells us follow the system, and then that doesn't really work for us. It doesn't give us the same results.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think that's a huge piece, and I think it's kind of, the dark side of this community and this service-based entrepreneurial world that we don't talk about a lot. I'm sure you've had this experience, and I know certainly from coaching my own clients, I have a lot of clients who have sunk God knows how much money into programs and templates and blueprints and 6+ figure guarantee this, and they follow the system, literally to the T. They're doing everything that they're trained to do, and it falls apart. It doesn't work. And, they're walking away saying, I was guided to do this. Now what's going on? Why is this not working? There's pain, there's frustration, there's this feeling like they're failing. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of things going on. So, first thing, let's talk about I was guided to do it, right? Because I hear that a lot. I was guided to download the system, or guided to spend so much and follow this guru. And that can be true. And you still have to bring your own piece of it to that system. So there's a difference between following blindly or taking somebody else's system and following it step by step and co-creating your life. So there's definitely a piece where you take all the other information and then you stick it in your own head and heart and regurgitate it as your own system of what's going to work for you. So there's a number of things that go on, I think, when we follow other people's systems. And that is, number one, is it right for you? You talk a lot about type and human design. I talk a lot about marketing archetype, right? And there's a place where those two things come together. But the root of it is that we are designed, we do have different purposes. We have different ways that we express out into the world. So someone who is extremely extroverted and might be a star type archetype in the most beautiful way isn't going to market naturally the same way that a caregiver will market. They're just not naturally going to have the same natural instincts to go out there. So if you're a star archetype, you're probably out there shaking hands and being really charismatic, right? But if you're a caretaker archetype, your internal charisma comes from really helping and serving other people. And so how you put that into marketing your business and your services is slightly different. But here's the other piece. If you're a star archetype, you're going to attract a different tribe than a caregiver archetype. And so your tribe is going to react differently to different types of marketing. So, and then of course there's timing, there's using intentional marketing, intentional strategy behind all of this as well. So there's a few moving pieces, but I think it comes down first to start with your purpose, start with your heart, start with what feels right to you, and then engage your brain. Don't just leave your brain out there, right? So yes, you're guided, but then we're the ones on the third dimension. We're the ones here with our boots on the ground that have to actually make it happen. So there's a reason we're here on Earth. So use your heart, find a way that's going to work for you based on design, based on archetype, and then use some specific strategy to implement and move forward.
So talk to me. You talk about archetypes. What are the archetypes? How many are there? And
so, okay, I have to get my sheet because whenever I'm live, I always forget one, right? So star, caregiver, creator, and I attract a lot of creative archetype, and I'm sure I have a feeling you do as well.
Definitely.
Mystic, and mystics is another interesting one, but mystics are usually on a journey. It's not necessarily that because mystic sometimes is misunderstood that a mystic means we're in touch with these other realms, but actually you're on a journey, so you're always really searching. Politician, which in its most aligned, balanced place, a politician's here to serve the biggest place on the planet, right? And so we forget that because politician has such a negative connotation, but in the really perfect place, a politician connects other people and makes huge changes. So I love politician. Mechanic. Mechanic's a great one. Really a systematic. Professor and visionary. And I want to say that we have natural inclinations, but we can pull from others. So there are definite times when I've been in creative mode for weeks and my brain is like pinging all over the place. And then at some point I have to say, wait a minute, I got to go into mechanic archetype here. I got to pull myself back and now actually list what I need to do, have some tasks, have some systems, and then implement. My husband's totally mechanic archetype first, but then he can totally go into creative mode when he needs to break out. So we can pull on others.
So what happens if somebody's like they have a specific archetype, but they are trying to, let's say, market differently? Maybe they've been, they're trying to fit into something that's not the right style of marketing for them.
So the place that I always really like to start is what feels good. The one example is that we're very often told to go to conferences, get out there and network, make sure you're at every lunch event, make sure you hit all 20 big conferences every year, right? Marketing conferences or whatever. And that doesn't fit for everybody. Not everybody has the lifestyle that they're able to do that, especially if you've got family and children. Not everybody wants to do that. And so the first thing is what feels good. Don't just because everybody else is doing it, don't feel like you have to go do it. Then, so it's what feels good, what the timing is. So taking this specific example, because I'm not one that runs off to lots of conferences, so I'm talking about me, of course, right? That there are times, though, when I want to pick and choose strategically which conference to go to. So what we want to do is find the things that we know work in marketing. Like we know going to conferences works. We know that when you connect with other people and network in your local community or in your global community, that works. But you have to be strategic. So you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall saying, well, I tried this conference. I tried this conference. I bought a booth at this conference. I spoke at this conference. Nothing's working. I'm exhausted just talking about it. Another way is you follow somebody's system who says you've got to put out tons of content. You've got to put out lots of $99 products and then follow the funnel. Do trigger products or make sure that you're upselling or make sure that you have 10 different autoresponders on your email list and you get people to buy this $7 product and then you get them to a $27 product and then you get them to a $99 product and then maybe if you're lucky you'll get them into your $1,000 product. That really works for some people. But for me, again, I'm exhausted just thinking about it because it's just doesn't follow my natural flow. I'd rather just get on the phone and talk to people and figure out a program, which is why I like to work with authors and coaches and speakers and people, because we can have a connection and do something that's right for them. So, and my tribe responds better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Did I?
Sense. And it totally horrifies me because personally, I the idea of getting on the phone with people that's not my style at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you do really well in that system of sort of email marketing, but you do it with love and you do it with heart. And that's where you're bringing yourself into it. So I get your emails and I get a lot of emails from you and I don't mind them. Right. So that's the key, is you're bringing your heart. You're not just taking somebody else's email and putting it on you. You're taking the system that we know works and bringing a lot of yourself into it.
Right. So, okay. So let's ground this conversation though and really make it super practical. Let's talk about social media marketing. That's the big thing. You know, people love social media marketing. It's relatively inexpensive. It's a way to reach people, a lot of people, if you know what you're doing. And I see a lot of people using social media marketing and a lot of people not getting the results, but yet other people who are getting the results. Going back to the archetypes, how can you can all the archetypes use social media marketing? And if so, how do they need to tweak it or change it? What's the secret sauce for success, like in social media marketing?
Yeah, great question. So I think the number one mistake, let's start there. The number one mistake I see people making is that they try to be on too many social media platforms at once. And so they're not good at any of them. So I have a friend who rocks Twitter. And for a lot of people, they're like, oh, Twitter's way too frenetic for me. I can't figure out how to do Twitter, right? And so that's partly based on archetype. But that's an intuitive piece. Most people know which way they want to go. Some people are great at Instagram. I've never even logged in. I don't even know Instagram. And I'm a marketing guru, whatever. And Instagram's like one of these massive ways to make money. And I never even explored it. So you have to choose one or two platforms first, because you can't rock everything. You can't know everything. Then here's this word, be authentic, right? That's such an overused word because we are who we are. And so how do we figure out if we're being authentic or not being authentic? I think you want to be authentic on the platform, but you want to be strategic. So I do talk about personal things, but I talk about personal things that I would also talk about if I was at a business chamber meeting. So if I would feel comfortable sharing it with a group of peers that I maybe have met once in a business setting, and I'd feel comfortable putting it there, then I'm comfortable putting it on social media. And I think what happens is we forget that there's still some boundaries. And so some people don't share anything of themselves because they're so freaked out, which is fine, but you're not going to be able to market yourself.
Right.
Or they share so much that it's like, oh my gosh, I can't bear to follow this person another minute. It's way too much detail.
Yeah.
And so choose one or two platforms, do them really well, and then be yourself, but be yourself within some boundary. Right? We don't want pictures of you being crazy, and we really don't want those extra details about that party you went to.
So talk a little bit about purpose and profit, because I think that's a piece, again, that's one of your biggest messages. You believe that there is a way to profit from your purpose. But how do people go about finding their purpose? How do they know if they're in their purpose? What if, no, I think a lot of people go into business. This is what I see a lot. They go into business and they're thinking, okay, I hate my day job. All right. So I'm going to do this business on the side. I'm going to grow this business on the side. Then I'm going to be able to easily step off into this new business. And then I'm going to make money here. And then once I make this amount of money, then I'm going to quit that and go do what I really want to do. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect prescription for burnout and procrastination, which you talk about. So what, if you're working with someone and let's say they're really saying, okay, Michelle, is my business lined up with my purpose? How do I know? What does it look like? What is that about?
Wow. Great question. So the first thing is when we first started talking today, it was about what's that theme that's running through your life? Mm-hmm. What archetype, are you? What design are you? Because you can be a teacher mm-hmm. and go into a million professions and start a million businesses. If you're a teacher, you could be a coach, you could do downloadable teaching products, you can go into a classroom, you can teach adults, you can teach your children at home and still be living your purpose. Mm-hmm. So it is not about the vocation, it's about the underlying energy. Mm. And I think what happens is people find a passion mm-hmm. or an interest and think that's their purpose and they need to monetize it. Especially in the United States, we're really big on monetizing everything, right? So we got to make money off of it. So here's an example. I love to ballroom dance, right? Mm-hmm. I love, anyone out there? I love to ballroom dance, but I don't want to go start a ballroom studio. It's a hobby. It's something I love to do. I have no interest in monetizing it, mm-hmm. right? So that's the first thing is be clear on what your hobbies are. Then if you're a caretaker or you are a teacher or mm-hmm. you're a star archetype, mm-hmm. then determine what are your interests that plug into that mm-hmm. to start your business. Or make sure that you're always plugging your purpose into your existing business so that you can sustain, so that you have energy, so that you continue to be passionate about your business. If you're a teacher and you love ballroom dancing, that might be the perfect business for you to start. But if you love ballroom dancing, but you're not a teacher, don't go start a ballroom dance studio where you have to teach every single day. Right. And so first start with the purpose. What's the energy? What is the thing that you know that even if you were never to make another dime in your life, you would still do it? Mm-hmm. Right. They talk about what is it you do if there's no money, whatever that famous saying is, right? And then if you do it, the money will follow. Right. I have thoughts about too, but it's find that energy. That's your purpose, and then plug that in with interests. Mm-hmm. But if you stay on that energy of what your purpose is first, not what your hobby is, not what your passion is, because that's something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We choose our passions.
And I think that's a really powerful point. And it leads me to just another really, I think, interesting question. And that question is, can you go into business just for the sake of making money? Is it possible to do that and not be aligned somehow energetically with a purpose?
So my first answer is, of course. Mm-hmm. People have been going into business for hundreds, probably thousands of years, right? And not aligned with their purpose. They live on a farm. That's how they were brought up. They're going to sell their zucchini. They're in business. They put out their roadside stand, right? But here's, I think, a little bit of the difference, especially probably for our audiences, mm-hmm. is we're living in a different time and place. Many of us want to bring our own creativity to a business now. Many of us want to live a more purposeful life now. Mm-hmm. So part of it is the consciousness of why we want to be in business.
Mm-hmm.
And will we be happy if we just wake up one day and say, I'm going to go start any business and I'm going to focus on it and I'm going to be do this for the next 30 years and make money? Mm-hmm. That will work for some people, but my guess is it won't work for most of our audience because we want to be more intentional. We want to be more purposeful.
I find in watching people that if they're, at least again, I think in our audience, that if they're strictly just going for the money, they're thinking, as I said, there's this fail-safe sort of backup plan. I'll do this, I'll get the money, then I'll go do what I really want to do. I don't think I've ever seen that pan out.
Yeah, they're going to burn out, right?
Right.
And you have a great video on that somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think burnout is a big piece of it. And I think when we look at being marketing in a way that's true to yourself, that's true to your archetype, that's true to your energy, excuse me, that when you are really aligned in that way, it actually causes your entire, physical, spiritual, emotional energy to be behind those deliberate and conscious actions. And that when you're out there trying to, market in a way that's not correct for you, create a strategy or a marketing plan that isn't in alignment with your archetype or your energy type, that it's almost like creating a facade. And it's like you have to kind of walk around with this big facade that you're porting from place to place, or that you're putting out in different, social media marketing platforms. Here's the fake person that I'm trying to be,
Right.
And there's a gap there between the person that you are and then this facade. And the more you maintain this facade, the more energy it takes, and the more energy you're putting into trying to be something you're not, or market in a way that's not correct for you, the more you burn out. And it's confusing to us because I think we have a very limited definition of what burnout is. We think burnout comes from, when you work too hard or you work too much, then you burn out. And I've watched people burn out who are not working hard by our traditional definitions. And the reason they're burning out is because they're saying yes to things they don't want to say yes to. They're saying no to things they don't want to say no to. They're shutting off, their own connection with their true self and what their real desire is, their message, their passion. And they cut off that natural flow of fire that comes when you're that aligned. And it's really, sad to watch that, because you can sense that there's something else in there. But I think we're just, the way we're taught and the way we're trained to go out and present ourselves in the world, we don't address the individual nature of people in as they are, in expressing themselves in the truth of who they are. We just really still buy into this. There's a one size fits all model for success. This is how you do business. This is how you do marketing. Here's the formula. I was a kid in the 70s in school when they were doing really innovative things with math. Do you remember? Did you ever have function machines?
What machine?
Function machines.
I remember slide rules.
So when I was when I was when I was like 10, 11, 12, we had these things called function machines where they would have like a formula on the box, and you would put the number in here and you would put it through the function machine, and then you'd write the number in over there at the end of the function machine. And the thing is, I think we are trained to think marketing is like this function machine. You take your purpose and your message, you put it through this little 6+ figure blueprint, and then poof, out the other end comes the, and it doesn't work that way. And I think we as marketers and as business coaches and, and as compassionate humans, I think we really have to start talking to people about, it's okay if you don't do it like everybody else. It's okay if you're trying to do it in this way and it feels wrong or icky to you, for you to go, man, this is not working for me. Even if the person you're learning from is making, 7+ figures at it, it might not be the right way for you. And I think, this is the brilliance of your archetype system, is really helping people discover what's my style. And how does that style, that archetype, how I like to express myself in the world, what's the best strategy for me from a business perspective to put this out in a way that's in alignment with that? Because if you're trying to be something you're not, it doesn't work and it wears you out. And I really think if people could get this one piece, I think the rate of failure in small businesses would decrease dramatically.
Yeah, you said something there about how it shuts down your spirit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happens a lot. And if I can just speak to something on that I think is really important. We have to be in the place where we can discern for ourselves the difference between fear, blocks, and following what's right for us. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's a hard place to figure out, am I blocked around this issue, or is it really just not my style? Am I in fear around this, or is that just not in alignment with who I am? And there's a discernment there that takes a little practice and takes a little time to sometimes understand. And there are times when we just have to sit with it. We may not know the answer in that moment, right? We just have to sit with it because we think, we're conscious beings. We should get instant answers. It doesn't always work that way.
Sure.
And then the other piece about that is when you're in business, we haven't talked about this piece before, Karen, is we can't really be 3-year-olds throwing tantrums.
Yeah.
There are going to be things that we don't want to do, that we need to do to keep our business running. So one of the things I like to talk about around archetype and everything is if you're in business, you have to be selling. And that's such a hard piece for creative.
That part.
Everybody hates that. So marketing only works to the point that if you follow through to the next step and actually sell something, right? Now, how you sell something could be through email, could be through downloadable products, could be through getting on the phone and having conversations, could be going to the conference, shaking hands with people, networking, going to lunch. There's a million ways to do it, but you have to go to that end step. And when you're marketing in alignment and doing your business in alignment with your spirit, then selling becomes a natural outreach, a natural next step of who you are and what you're here to do in the world. But if you are out of alignment with your own spirit and what you're doing, you're never going to feel good about the sales process.
Right.
And I think that's also a piece people don't talk about because everybody hates that sales word, right?
And I think I would add one other piece to it too. And I think this is another piece that comes from embracing who you are, is when you recognize your brilliance and your unique way of expressing your brilliance, it also allows you to step more fully into the value of what you're bringing forth. And I think, that value piece and valuing the work that you do and the way in which you do the work and seeing, I think the brilliance in the archetypes that you're using is really giving people this opportunity to attune themselves to what their gifts are rather than saying, well, I can't do this and I'm not that. But to really say, okay, I am a teacher or I am a star, and that's my gift, that's my brilliance. And to really say, okay, if I'm stepping into this brilliance and I'm owning it and I'm being it and I'm aligning with it and I'm creating materials around it, for them for I think people to also really embrace how valuable and precious it is that they're doing, what they came here to do and the way in which they came here to do it. And that value piece is huge.
It is. I was at an open mic night with my daughter last night, and she sings. And one of the other girls in her class got up on stage and sang, and I went, oh my gosh, she's got such a beautiful voice. And she came off the stage and said, I hate my voice. I can't sing.
Aww.
Right? And it's like, when people are not valuing who they are and the gifts they bring, it doesn't serve anyone. And I want to shake her and say, you don't have to be a professional singer, but honor that you have a beautiful voice and just share it with the world.
Right. Well, and I think that value piece, it's so huge when we do business work. I mean, you watch people, I mean, you know, I would say a large part of the coaching that I've done with people, and I know you do this too, is to tell people you're not charging enough, and stop apologizing for how much you're charging, and stop running this whole line of, well, people in my area don't pay this, or people are not. I mean, I got a text the other day from someone who said, a long-term client of mine, and she said, you know, what do coaches charge? And I said, well, they can charge whatever they want, and some of them charge a lot. And she's like, well, I have this client who's in New York who's telling me my fees are too high. And I said, well, how much are you charging? And she said $250 an hour. And I'm like, wow, that's a really, really low rate for an hourly coaching session for a really great coach. I mean, this is a woman who can find $1 million that are, you know, are hiding in your business.
Right.
And to watch someone this brilliant sort of slip into this, I think because somebody told her somebody questioned her value, to watch her sort of instinctively sort of start to question her own value, because I think we have a lot of weird hangups about standing in your value. I would say tooting your own horn. You know, we have all these statements about pride goeth before the fall. You know, there's a lot of really interesting dynamics around the issue of value, and it's not always an easy piece to kind of get around when you're working with people.
It's not. And I think no matter where you are, you have another place that brings it all up, right? It's much easier to sell a product or somebody else's service than it is your own. It always is for all of us, right? But if I put in front of you two cars, and one's a Ford pickup and one's a Jaguar, you'd be able to tell me the differences between the two, what's great about the Ford truck, what's great about the Jaguar, all the features and benefits, and you'd be able to sell me, even knowing nothing about them, you'd be able to sell me on both of those in either one. And there are times when the Ford is equally of value because you need a pickup truck, right? And I think we forget that we put ourselves up to compare ourselves with the Jaguar. Or we put ourselves up in comparison with somebody else who's like charging $2,000 an hour for a coaching session. And I can't ever be that, so I can't even charge $200.
Right.
Whereas we find where we are in the moment and step into that value, and then learn and be the best at what we can be the best at.
Right.
And then either leverage yourself through licensing, certification, or charge more, or teach classes, or do download products, or speak to groups, or whatever it is, so that you can even step more and more into that value.
Right, right. So let's do this. If anybody has a question, if they want to get in our hot seat and let Michelle sort of look at what's going on with you, throw us a question in the question box. And
do you want to open up the video or just do questions?
Open up the video. You're the host.
What did you say about video?
Let's open up the video and see if anybody wants to join our.
Okay, I know a couple of people had requested. So, Julie, I know you requested. I'm just going to put you on the spot here. If you would like to get on video, go on the hot seat, or if anyone just has a question about archetypes, marketing, business, design, Grace Point. Look at those hearts. We're getting so many hearts, Karen. Isn't that lovely? Nice. Hi, Cynthia. Now I'm reading the comments.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Patrick. Can you see comments, Karen?
I can. I mean, I don't have my glasses on, but I can. Oh,
I know. I put mine up here, so in case I need them. So, hi, Cynthia. Meet Tat. That's hi. Oh, and somebody that I can't read your name. Hi. I don't even know what language that is. Sorry.
Arabic.
Is it Arabic? How do you know? Can you read Arabic?
I cannot read Arabic. I just recognize Arabic.
You recognize it as opposed to well, I don't know enough about those languages.
Non-English looking languages.
Yeah, there are other languages that look like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I just don't know what they are. So anyway, if you have a question about marketing, business, go ahead and send a message or request to come into the open seat.
Archetype, if you've got a book that you want to talk about, if you have anything related to publishing, anything related to getting your message out there.
Platform, social media, books, bestsellers, right?
Value.
And I think there's a place too that I just want to mention, Karen, that just with, I think you and I sort of walk our talk a little bit too, because you have design and business by design, and I have marketing archetypes, that it's not like one or the other system either. It's right. Like both of these systems can bring you a lot of information.
They're actually really complementary, because your archetype system is really helping people find their unique style. The human design system that I use really is about helping people find the way to leverage their energy correctly. So you could be, let's say you're in the human design system, there are 5 energy types, and you can be, let's say, a projector energy type who is a star, which is a very interesting combination, because the star, of course, I'm assuming wants to be out there, likes to be, you know, on the stage, and the projector has a deep need for recognition to be heard, and they can't push their message. So you can imagine if you've got this star energy that says, I belong up there on stage. I'm supposed to be up here with all these master teachers. Why am I not up here? Right? And then you have this projector energy that says, I can get up there, but I can't get up there until I'm discovered, or until somebody finds me and puts me where I'm supposed to be, because I cannot get out there and push. I can't go and network and say, hi, I'm Bob, and do it that way, because it actually energetically pushes people away from me. So really looking at that marriage between what's your archetype, how, you know, where's your place, how do you fulfill yourself, as well as how do you find that place, energetic mechanics, you know, energetically, of how you get to the place where you're supposed to be. That's a really powerful marriage, and I think a really important piece to look at when we're looking at how can we get somebody into business, get them up and stepping fully into their role, and doing it in a way that's correct for them energetically, so that they are compelling and attractive and being placed where they're supposed to be. And they're doing it in such a way that they're taking care of and maintaining their energy and not burning themselves out and pushing potential clients away.
Absolutely. And I wonder in that case, if how you structure a speech, if you were talking about a projector star, how you're actually structuring the speech, and maybe in terms of inquiry or thought-provoking questions, rather than pushing your message onto somebody else.
Absolutely.
Helps bring that into alignment.
And I mean, for example, as a projector, you know, I always tell my projector clients, projectors are here to manage and guide and direct others. That's their life. That's their role. And they get their opportunities when they are recognized and invited. And it's not about the little things. It's about the big things. The big opportunities will come to them through recognition and attention. And the most dangerous thing that a projector can do in terms of marketing is to overuse the pronoun I, which, you know, we're really kind of trained to do in marketing, right? We're trained to talk about yourself, talk about your experience, talk about your credentials, talk about, you know, the photograph of the check. Oh, I made this much money last year. Or, you know, you want to talk about yourself because that's part of the selling point. And if you're a projector, and imagine this, Michelle, a projector star, right?
Right. Yeah.
The star, I think, by nature is going to want to talk about themselves or their message, or their message in the context of themselves, right? And for a projector, that's just death knell in terms of the marketing message. So really looking at how you can create a marketing platform that allows the star to serve as a star, because that's their natural place, but to do it even just looking at the subtleties of how to tweak their language so that they're standing in that star role, but they're not up there going, me, I, and everybody's going, yeah, that's enough. We don't want to hear anything else from you anymore. And then they're a fallen star because they didn't address it correctly, right?
Right. And I think it is just about reframing the message a little bit so that they feel in alignment and can stand powerfully in what they believe in. And then their audience is attracted to that.
Yeah.
And there are stars out there who talk about me, and this worked for me, and this is what I did and follow. And it is totally in alignment. And we can all
projectors.
Right. And we can all think of some in the internet marketing world, anybody that's there. I'm not going to mention names, but I'm sure everyone can think of some. And they have huge followings because they're in alignment with their own type, marketing archetype, and design, human design. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So I'm going to open it up for questions again. Hi, I see some new people joined. Great to have you. We're talking about marketing archetypes, human design, conscious business. What else? Marketing, being on purpose, profit, right? We're talking about all those things today. And so if you have a question or if you'd like to join the hot seat, love to have you. What else, Karen? There's so many things you and I can talk about. I think the world of business is changing.
Huge. I mean, totally. I mean, my husband and I are working on a project where we're rehabbing an old building and creating a business incubator and a co-working space in there. And, part of what we're doing is wanting to bring in single mom entrepreneurs and giving them the support that they need for launching their businesses and doing it in a way that allows them to still be present and at home with their kids. And we actually had a big community meeting last night. I would say it was kind of like a witch hunt. But it was interesting when I was doing some of my research yesterday before I presented to this group last night, that the tax base, the small business tax base, has doubled in the last 10 years, meaning that small businesses and home-based businesses are growing, and they're growing more profitably, and they're really becoming a very significant portion of the tax base in this country. And I think just looking at just that fact alone and how the economy changes there, it changes the face of business quite dramatically, because we're looking at really what I'm going to call the entrepreneurial class. It's like it's an entire class of people now that are coming up that are out in the world trying to taking their innovative ideas and going about them in very different and innovative ways. And I think the economy is really right for people who come in and say, I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to do it differently, and I'm going to do it more innovatively. And I think we're really seeing a big shift towards what I would call a values-based economy too, where people are going into business and are going into business not just for the money. In fact, I would say and not that this is a really weird conversation, because obviously if you go into business, you're going into it to a certain degree for money. Who wants to go into business and not make any money? It's fun to make money. It's rewarding. It buys you resources, and it buys you the ability to expand your business, and it buys you time off. It buys you freedom, right? But at the same time, I don't see anybody who's driven, their primary motivation is money anymore. I mean, I very, very rarely run into someone that's like, my goal is, 500K. Their goal is, I want to get my message out. I want to be on stage with master teachers. I want, to create a place where people who are hurting can come and be healed. I want to, I don't know. There's just so many. I want to do something that gives back to the community and gives back to the world. This is the driving force that I'm seeing in the economy and in the people I've worked with. And it's changed, I would say, in the last 15 years. I mean, I've been coaching people in business for, I don't want to do the math, but a long time, like half of my adult life. And there was a time when definitely the focus was much more on the financial piece. I would say in the 80s and in the 90s, a lot of my clients were multi-level marketing people who were really trying to get their message out there. I mean, really not get messages out there, but to try to convert people to their downline. And there was a lot of focus on still mindset stuff, but a lot of real commitment to the financial piece as being kind of the ultimate reward. And I don't think I see that at all anymore in any of my clients. But
I think people want to have enough money to live whatever lifestyle they want to live, whether that's off the grid or travel a lot, but they're not willing to give up their life to make it. And that's the difference, especially with millennials. And you have like a whole gaggle of millennial children. They're not willing to just go to a traditional corporate job anymore and give what they see as give up their life for the money.
And I think it's not even so much that they're giving up their life. I think going back to this whole idea of energy and archetypes is what I see, particularly with the millennial kids is, or they're not kids, they're adults, but to me, they're kids. What I see with them is that they have this highly refined sense of when their actions are out of integrity with who they really are. It's like they have this, I mean, I'll call it, they have the bullshit detector. You know, they get into it and they're like, meh, this doesn't feel right for me. I'm done. And we say, okay, these kids we have issues with recidivism with these kids that, you know, they don't stay in the job. They don't go to work. They quit. They have these unreasonable, we say they have entitlement issues, you know, and I'm thinking, do they have entitlement issues or are they just so conscious of what real abundance means? And that it's not just about, I go to the job, I make the money, I go home, but that they're really saying, I want to work in such a way that my spirit is nurtured and I feel in alignment with integrity and I'm making a valuable contribution and that's recognized and it's honored and it's valued. You know, I don't think that's entitlement. I think that, you know, these kids, and I think also the entrepreneurial class, they're really clear that I'm doing this because of the purpose piece. I'm doing this because of the meanings piece. And, you know, one of the comments is that they have a deeper sense of purpose. I think they totally have a deeper sense of purpose. And I think they're also really clear. I mean, this is something, we don't talk about this a lot, but, you know, this is a generation of people who are looking at global warming is going to be a real thing in their backyard. I mean, we're seeing it a little bit now, but these kids have to deal with this for the rest of their life. They're going to have to look at, okay, how are we going to take a changing world and the resources that may or may not be available as a result of the changes in the world, and how are we going to be able to figure out how to allocate and manage and do this? I mean, they're very consciously worried about this. I mean, again, somebody wants to call in.
Yeah, come on in, Melanie.
Yeah, come on in.
Yeah. Well, there you come. Hi. It's great to have you. So hold that thought, Karen, because you and I could do a whole blab just on that.
That's right.
Hi, Melanie. How are you? Welcome.
I am happy that you're actually talking about this.
Yeah.
I liked when the issue was, do they really feel entitlement? I think that's just such a negative connotation. I just think they've just grown up in a different realm where they are taught earlier on than maybe my generation or whatever, that they should want to contribute more than just punching a time clock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. And the other piece of this, I think, is because it seems like we're going back to maybe our great grandparents' times in terms of we want decent food. We're going back to some basics. We want community. We want decent food. We want not big mansions that we have to clean all the time and work 60 hours a week to pay for, but tiny houses. Mm-hmm. And maybe to be more mobile, which is a new spin on old-fashioned values, right? And so it's not the entitlement like you are saying, Melanie and Karen. It is about how do you want to live your life in a way that's meaningful.
And I think that, that's their presence, and I think their energy is really inviting us to engage in that same dialogue, because it's not just them. They're basically the sum total of what's come before. So that's where they are, they're standing on the work that we've done. So, we can't blame them as if there's some kind of mutant offspring that we didn't have a part of creating,
And isn't that what we want, right? Community. Yeah.
Yeah. And plus there's, we are in a place of history where we are aware of each other, where before the internet, we had to rely on what we heard, who we knew, what books we were exposed to, what travel experiences we had. Now, because more people are exposed in more ways, like through the internet, through interactions such as this,
Right.
we are aware that, wow, there have been really neat people through time that stepped outside of their comfort zone and really contributed to society as a whole. And I think that's what this big awareness is right now.
Where are you in the world, Melanie?
I'm in Dayton, Ohio area, United States.
Is it cold and snowy there?
Not yet. But it's we had a really nice 77-degree day yesterday, which is weird for November. It's
strange, isn't it? Talking about global warming and it is strange, and El Nino and all that. But I mean, this blab right here just talks about what you're saying, speaks to what you're saying, that we're connecting with people from all over. People I've never met you before. It's so great to have you on the blab, and it opens up community in such a way that brings it back to years ago, as opposed to a me society so much.
Yeah. Well, that's really all our forefathers knew. You know, they were encouraged to, if you want something, go get it. And we have that same encouragement now with the youngins, anybody under 35 maybe, we encourage them to go get what they want, but the want is different. The want isn't a financial abundance. The want is personal achievement and purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, again, even we see this in everything, even in our, again, working with entrepreneurs. And I have an obsession with the tiny house movement. My husband's an architect, and he's so not into the tiny house movement. Never fit all of his books in a tiny house, so we'd have to have a separate tiny house for his books. But I've had a couple of friends that have gone through this process now of downsizing in a tiny house, and to watch the process that they have to go through of just significantly going, okay, what are my core values, including, what are the things that I value physically and materially. And I think that when we go back and apply this to the idea of entrepreneurs and business, it's the same concept for us now. I think I watch entrepreneurs, and they're asking, what's the core basis of what I want? And some of them are wanting, I want to make the bare minimum, but to have the freedom to be able to travel, or I want the freedom to be able to be done at 3:00 in the afternoon, so that when my kids are home from school, I'm there and I'm present and I'm not distracted. Or I want the freedom to be able to contribute to social programs. It's a very different place of motivation, and I think it brings a lot more joy to the world of work. And I think when we talk about people being burned out or people struggling, I think part of what happens is they've lost the joy because they're trying to jam themselves into a box, because we still have the business box. And the more we can get out of the box and go, okay, right now at this time in our history, even in business, there are really very few rules, and there are very few or no formulas. There's practical stuff. You still got to do the work. You still got to, you're going to have to sell, as Michelle said. You're going to have to do something, but the way in which you do it is going to be your way, and it's going to be unique to you. And really, I think the process of clarifying why you're doing it.
And let me add to that the sense of community, when we share ideas with each other, we find solutions together. And I have a small business. And just like everybody else, it's like, how do we get our financing? Well, the problem has become that it's very difficult to get that traditional financing. So people got together and said, let's introduce this thing called crowdfunding. And that,
Right.
that has been a solution for so many. And it's just another testament that when people get together and they talk about, and they only can do this when they talk to each other, not this, I'm going to conquer everything by myself.
Yeah.
You have to be in this open forum type thing. And then somebody, you say, we need the solution. And then people are attracted to that because they actually have vehicles that will help you reach what you want to do. And, crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, and the word crowd, it has a different meaning now. It's that strong support background.
It's interesting. I just want to speak to that for a minute because I've been involved with several crowdfunding campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure if you were here at the beginning, Melanie, when I talked a lot about marketing archetypes, but that has not worked for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that some people have the right product at the right time, are in alignment with their own spirit, with their own marketing archetype, put together the right campaign, and boom, and everything fits. And I've had other people who have come at this like, I can't get financing, I'm going to try this. And the energy is so weighted down that they know it's not really right for their spirit. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But for those people, speaking in public to a group of people, pitching your idea to pitch night in your local community, writing a grant, there's other ways to get it done. And so just going back to our initial conversation about what's your design, what's your type, what's your marketing archetype, we have so many more tools available to us now, such as crowdfunding that weren't even available before. And you still have to sort of tune in and be honest with yourself. Is this going to be the right system for you right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's.
So what do you?
I'm
business,
sorry.
Melanie?
Oh,
What is your business?
I own
What is your
a
business?
small business called Big Uptick Social Marketing LLC, and I help people with their online marketing success. That's my hashtag Achieve Beyond.
Nice.
But, so been doing it for over 2 years now. And I have a strong marketing background, and it was time for me. I was in the logistics and supply chain management industry,
Mm-hmm.
which is really, precise, providing for hospitals, the coming and going of all things from cotton balls to MRI machines, that kind of thing. But the creativity wasn't there. And then when I switched industries to online marketing, I was supporting other small businesses. And then I said, wait a minute, I should be a small business myself. So that's what I did. and no looking back. I mean, where I worked for corporate, I had that security. I had the 9 to 5, the benefits, all this stuff. But there was really, the organization was just so huge. I was just the, tiniest bit in that cog. And if I wasn't there for a day, the company didn't fail, But with small businesses, when people aren't there for a day, things can, get backlogged, and you just have this higher sense of purpose. Again, we're back to that purpose thing.
So, Melanie, let me ask you, how long were you doing that supply chain work?
I did that for nearly 7 years, and that's what my degree is. And then before that, I owned a business a long time ago. But I was, I've also been in human resources.
So I just want to put you on the hot seat for a minute. Are you game?
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. So, because I'm curious about what your marketing archetype might be, or what thread there is that goes through your life that brings all these things together. And have you identified that? Do you know, like, what you did when you were 20 and what you do now, and what that thread is that's pulled all this together for you?
Well, I can go back more recent, that when I went back to, as an older student, back to college, where I was often mistaken as the instructor, not a student. Now it's different,
Right.
Now it's so diverse. But I got into that field because I am fascinated with the technology of coming and going and all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
But when I wasn't feeling that inner satisfaction, I went on a personal mission to find out how I could switch from such a strict discipline of statistics and mathematics and, suppliers and vendors. I mean, very, very strict realm to where I can be more free and creative. And if that made sense. So I reached out to a person I didn't even know on LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
And he ran a huge business in Cleveland. And I sent him a note through LinkedIn. And I said, I'm going to be in the Cleveland area at this date. Do you have time to speak with me for an hour? I would like, his strong discipline mind and see what he would advise, or if he even knew anybody who really switched disciplines from strict to this to freedom. And he granted me that time. So when I was up in Cleveland, I told him my dilemma. I said, I'm here right now. My degree is here, but I want to go into online marketing. And he said, well, there are 2 children. Which one do you choose to have live? And I said, oh my gosh, I cannot choose like that. He said, well, then you're not ready to talk to me. And I said, wait a minute. He said, you choose right now. Which child would you like to see live? The one that's in the supply chain world, or the one where you could create? You decide right now. And I said, well, then it's online marketing. He said, well, then there's your answer. And I said, but how do I switch? He said, just jump in there and
choose,
do it.
Right.
And,
so let me ask you, because I want to go to the archetype for just a minute. What were you doing when you were 20? Did you go to college?
I was raising a family as a stay-at-home mother.
And so did you have hobbies when you were 20? Yeah,
I wrote I wrote a 500-page novel
about what subject?
It was a story of how we're all connected by kindred spirits. It was just a happy book that had its own life. 500 pages later.
And so, did you go to college to learn the supply chain piece?
Yes, and that's after
And what's your degree in?
Logistics and supply chain management.
Logistics. Mm-hmm. So, and when you were 15, what did you like to do when you were 15?
When I was 15, I did competitive speech. Speech. And then I later became Toastmaster in this, but that's what I loved, because acting, drama, I was failing that because I couldn't follow anybody else's script. That really bothered me.
You know what really seems to be one thread that comes together for me, and obviously I've just met you, right? Mm-hmm. But one thread that really is coming together is you take very complex, technical-minded patterns and find a way to weave those together. And so I don't have exactly the name right off for that, but you have taken that same skill set that you wrote about in the book. When you're a professional speaker, it's all about taking complex thoughts and how do you weave them together to make sense. When you're following the logistics, you're taking these complex things and weaving it together so it goes through a funnel, through a supply chain. And so you've just done that same thing with social media, which seems to be so complicated for some people. And you're able to take all these moving pieces and say, no, here's the direct thread. Here's the way that you do it. Here's the way that you lay it out. So if you were ever to change careers again, just from the little bit that I know about you, it's less about the creativity. Obviously, you want to bring your creativity into it because you're a writer, you're a speaker, you're a hugely creative person. But you're going to be, I think, happiest and feel like you're in your purpose when you're taking really complex patterns and tying them together.
That is, oh my gosh, that is so interesting, because this is like, I don't know either of you. You don't know me. No. And that's the value I see, because there's no, what they call it, conditional bias. There's no bias. The term is bias confirmation, where there's no preconceived notions like, oh yeah, we're going to talk to Melanie today about this because we want her. No, this is totally off the fly, and your observations in like 3 minutes maybe. And that's the value that I got when I met with that executive in Cleveland who didn't know me from anything. And he just, he's like, all right, you have an hour, you want to achieve this, and we can solve this in 5 minutes. You just choose.
Right.
Where at that point I was not ready to choose.
Right. So, Karen, I want to just go back to you because I know that we're a little bit over time here.
Okay.
And see if we can wrap this up. And Melanie, it's been just like an honor and a blessing. And I thank you for being willing to be on the hot seat with me for a minute there.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I really appreciate that. So, Karen, I'm bringing it back to you.
Okay. So
to wrap up.
So we've had a very long conversation, and I think that one of the important pieces that we've really hit on is that, number one, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to business. Number two, that for you to create success in business, you've got to discover your archetype, the correct way for you to present yourself, how to align yourself with who you really are, and make sure that your marketing strategy is lining up with that piece. Because if it's not, it's really going to set you up to sabotage or to blow up or to burn out. And I mean, I think that's what we've seen over and over again. So, figure out, your marketing archetype. I think the other piece that I think was really profound to me when we talked about this today was, how much we really hit on the idea that purpose is really the driving factor in success for entrepreneurs at this point. And that it's not necessarily about the profit, although obviously the profit piece is important, but we're not martyring ourselves to business, but that many people are going into business for a different level of motivation, and that for people to be able to, again, create success with that, they have to be able to identify, what is their purpose and their passion, what are they really wanting to get out of their business. And I think in the context of all that, we summed up by going, how interesting it is.
Did we lose? There we go. We lost it for a second.
Yeah.
There she is.
Sorry. I'm back. I think how interesting it is that these millennials, I think, are really becoming the spokespeople for the entrepreneurial class and the entrepreneurial generation. And they're saying, we're not driven and motivated by the things that we've been trained or taught or should be motivated by. We're motivated by a bigger place of meaning and a bigger place of service. And I think so are most of the business, if not all of the business people that we work with. So I think in terms of wrapping up, if you want to learn more information about what Michelle has to offer in the Archetype program, if you visit her website, which is Michelle
Van de Pass.
Michelle Van de Pass.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for that
plug. Michelle has an enormous amount of information on there that she can share with you, and some opportunities for you to really go more deeply into discovering your marketing archetype and how you can really implement that piece. That's not the only thing she does, by the way. That's just one of the core seeds of what she does that helps you line up your marketing strategy and your purpose and create profit living and marketing your purpose. So did I hit it all?
I want to thank Melanie for coming in and adding to the conversation. And I'm going to be looking for you on other blabs and Twitter. So thank you so much. I'm going to put you off now for the recording. Bye, Melanie. And do I want to kick this person out? I'm sorry, I'm going to kick you out. And and I want to thank Karen for switching roles with me today, and for the lovely conversation. It was really great. Yes. And thank you. And your website, you want to give it while you're here? How about if we give a new one?
Let's
give a
new one. So, I love it. So Michelle and I are joining forces in creating a new business called Grace Point Matrix. So our new website is gracepointmatrix.com.
It is. I'm hyperventilating. Right? The logo is freaking gorgeous. And we're pulling together some programs that bring human design, marketing, archetype, marketing, business together. Karen's bringing her relationship pieces, and I'm bringing purpose pieces, and you're bringing purpose pieces, and healing, loads of healing. I have 15 years intense experience marketing specific healers and practitioners that I'm bringing. Awesome rockin' business. We've gone off on a tangent here, but GracePointMatrix.com.
GracePointMatrix.com.
Check it out. So and thank you again, Karen. Thank you, everybody who joined us today. Really appreciate it.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.